Hey. So Spielberg has said that the first time you heard your British accent was after the last take, after the last fight. You were known as a method actor. So when did you start the character of Lincoln, and what qualities did you want to bring to him?
The trouble with even trying to answer a question like that, I find, is that everything that comes out of my mouth seems to be like a reductive expression of something that, I mean, I still haven't found a way of really understanding myself what happened in the last couple of years. I'm just amazed by the whole thing. And already it's beginning to take on that strangeness, which is not uncommon to me, where you feel really that somebody else did that. But I talked to Steven a good bit before we started making the film, so it's not like he discovered me ready-made as Abraham Lincoln. But I think that whole thing, which tends to be spoken about on my behalf, because I try not to talk about it too much, but that whole thing takes on a mystique which is not really representative to me of the work itself, because it seems so clear to me that if I and most of my colleagues really do the same thing in different ways maybe, but we go to these great lengths to try and create a world for ourselves. And within that world, we try and create an understanding of the lives that we're expressing in that world. And for me, that's where the pleasure of the work is. So what would seem crazier to me is to jump in and out of that world, or in and out of the experience of that character, because that's really where I want to be. I guess finally there is some kind of mystery, because it either works or it doesn't work, and you've no idea what makes the difference, but it's just the joy of that work, really.
I ask you a question over here.
Yes.
This role, this person, Lincoln,
yes.
everyone in this country knows, everyone throughout the world knows. Talk about, did you feel a bit of a responsibility? Was there a bit of a fright portraying a character that's so well known, so beloved around the world, not just in this country?
Well, yeah, I mean, to the extent that I really circled it for 7 years, I think it was, before I finally heard myself, to my own amazement, say, yes, let's try and do this. I think I was really pretty much convinced that I really wasn't the person that he needed to help him tell this story. I cherish my time working here. I've been blessed with wonderful experiences over the years. The last thing I wanted to do was to go down in flames, having desecrated the memory of the greatest president in the history of this country. Fear was something that I certainly was aware of, and I suppose the thing is that it's the work that takes over. Once that decision seems to make itself, which if you're lucky it does at some point, the curiosity in the work takes over. And luckily, not that it doesn't come back from time to time, but for the most part it just gets pushed aside. And then afterwards you think, oh, what was I thinking of? Why did I think I could do?
Chris or Jim in the Philippines, if you could go back in time and ask Abraham Lincoln
yes.
one question, you're given the opportunity to ask him one question now that you've played him, what would that be?
when that is so unfair to ask me. I mean, I think I would be so paralyzed with all the questions jumping on each other that I would wish to ask him. I'd probably end up not saying a word. I'd just stand there and...
When you played him, he had a lot of different difficult decisions to make. Was there one that you would want to ask maybe?
Well, I think probably the thing I'd have been most fascinated by, in a way, because so much is known about him and the world that he occupied during that extraordinary period of American history. I mean, there's thousands of books written, also many contemporary accounts, his own writing, his own thoughts and memos and letters, and we know an awful lot about him, it turns out, during that time, but what we don't know is what he would have done during the period after the war to bring about Reconstruction. That's something I'd have been really fascinated to talk to him about. But I had a strange feeling towards the end of my time during the course of that work. I couldn't help wondering whether, even if he hadn't been assassinated, maybe he wouldn't have survived for very long. It felt to me as if he'd spent himself completely in the service of that country in that moment of time. So who knows whether he ever would have been able to oversee construction, but I think the history of the next 100 years would have been very substantially different had he been able to do that.
Daniel, you talk about a part, you influencing a part influencing you.
Recognition. Thank you.
How much did his character, the traits that we admire in him, his frailty, his practicality, all of those things, how much did that end up influencing you and your thoughts about politics and about yourself?
Certainly part of the discovery for me was the discovery of the system of politics of this country, which I really wasn't familiar with at all. And even to the extent feeling the need to go back to the origin of this country, the forming of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence, to get a strong feeling of how this system of democracy actually functions. In terms of the qualities of that man, these are questions that are really hard to answer, because I think I might know more in time to come, but at this time I still feel, probably for an unwillingness to let go of the experience, I still feel connected to it, and I don't really know. I can't define what the influence was, but who couldn't wish to have the influence of that extraordinary man have some lasting impression on their lives? I'd love to believe that was so, but it seems somehow almost presumptuous to assume that it will, but I would hope so.
Daniel, it seems like the room was enamored with Bill Clinton coming in.
Yes.
Can you talk about if Spielberg was involved in getting him to come, and what does Clinton's support mean for the film?
Well, I think you'd have to ask Mr. Spielberg about that. I'm sure, I know they're friends, and their friendship goes back quite a long way, and I've no doubt that conversations led to that, but I mean, I haven't had a chance actually to find a corner somewhere and just reflect on that moment when he spoke about our film. And I was very honored to have a conversation with him afterwards, and to hear his thoughts about the man, about his achievements, and about, I wouldn't wish to try and put that in a sentence or two, but yes, I mean, what an incredible privilege to have him, a Lincolnian scholar in his own right, speak about our film in that way.
Just wondering,
Hi.
how big a surprise was it for you? Did the table know he was going to come out, Mr. Clinton, President Clinton?
Couple of us. I didn't know when, though. I mean, it still was amazing, because even knowing it still was amazing to see him there, so graciously taking part in this evening, which, you know, when we enter into different worlds, I'm not quite sure how it came about, but I went to the Correspondents' Dinner this year, and I dare say I felt as utterly bewildered by that experience as he probably does by something like this, although he's been around. But yeah, it was an unforgettable thing for us that he took the time to do that this evening.
I remember in Rome some of your first interviews for the movie, the Milan Kundera movie,
Yeah.
book,
Mm-hmm.
and after that your career was incredible. I just want to know, something changed for you from that time of your first movie and your love for cinema until now? Are you more cynical? Sometimes are you
Cynical?
Yeah, I don't know. Some actor is tired to act. I just want to
No, I don't think I am, and I think, but I exercise a rare privilege, which is that I work when I feel a compelling need to do that work, and when I don't, I do other things. Now, everyone has a different way of approaching the work that they do, and some people are absolutely compelled to do what they need to do because they have to pay bills, and there's nothing unworthy about that. It's an honorable reason, but I'm lucky enough to, I think I made a decision many years ago that in the hope that I would never become cynical about the work, which was important to me. I felt there's a possibility of some nobility in the work, but it's not easy to find that. Very often the work falls short of that. Mostly it does. So I didn't want to find myself in my middle years, as I am now, just doing that because that's what I do without any real sense of delight. And nothing changed. I mean, going back to that moment you're describing, I'm trying to remember how that happened. I think I'd already done My Beautiful Laundrette and Room with a View when Saul and Zantz and Phil Kaufman asked me to do The Unbearable Lightness of Being, and it was a whole different kind of an experience for me, that. But I'm not aware that anything changed, but I think I knew for nothing that I had to allow myself time, not just outside of the work, but also within the work, that I needed time. I work at a very slow rhythm, and it's good if you get to know what your rhythm is and then just don't dance to somebody else's beat.
You played, it's just one more question. You played important historical.
Sorry.
You played important
Yes.
historical roles. Do you collect anything from the past?
Collect in what sense?
Or anything that, you know?
Well, I mean, obviously I have collections of research books that I've needed over the years, so, I mean, I would never wish to get rid of them. It's unlikely I'll read many of them ever again, but they have certain kind of talismans, I suppose. But I'm not a collector in the general sense. I don't really like the feeling of collecting things. So I don't have, I'm not sure I know what you're talking about, but I don't collect memorabilia from those. Is that what you?
Well,
or,
I think I got my answer.
yeah, okay. Good. You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.